You told me to clean my room. You didn't tell me how to clean my room. So I didn't make the bed and I didn't vacuum. I didn't have to do that at home. All I had to do was make sure the floor wasn't clean or wasn't dirty.
I know I promised you that we would go to the movies this week, but I'm just too tired, and that's nothing that you've done, but I, I just think that we should do something else right now. I don't. I'm a little tired right now, and I'm sorry, but we'll make it up one day.
You did really good working on your homework tonight. Let's look at it really quick. Man, you worked really hard on it, but you got some of the answers wrong. So let's look at it together and we'll get this figured out.
I can't believe your attitude this week. Last week you were so good. You earned a trip to the movies, and we were going to go and have fun. But guess what? You're not getting it now, buddy. I don't care if you earned it last week. This week you have just been a total brat, and we are not doing anything until you can fix your attitude.
All right. Hey guys, I am Nikki Wilson, and I am a team leader with South Middle Omni.
And I'm Keith Ford. I'm the placement coordinator for the South Middle region.
And so today we're going to talk to you guys about consequences and praise and all kinds of things. And by the end of this, we're hoping you'll get like an hour of training. So if you could take notes and even post questions underneath, we'll come back and look at them. But you can also reach us via email. I know mine's Miranda Wilson at omnivisions.com.
And mine is kford at omnivisions.com.
All right. So, Key, let's talk about that first one that's on our list. And it says, create a few simple and clearly defined rules and consequences, like we talked about in scene 1.
Yes. When you think about it, the children that we service, they come from different backgrounds. They may not have the same ideologies that you have. They may not have been taught the same things that you've been taught or that you teach your children or that you grew up knowing. So it's always a challenge when a kid comes in and you may say, well, surely this child should know how to clean their room, or surely this child should know how to do X, Y, and Z. And I just don't understand why they don't. But again, we have to look at the history, where the child comes from, what may the child have not been taught. And so for us to come in already with the expectations of saying this kid should do these things, and it's going to challenge you, it's going to frustrate you. But these should be teachable moments, not moments where we're ready to disrupt the kid or we belittle the kid or make the child feel like they are less than human for not knowing those things.
I think also, like with the expectations, I think a lot of times we create rules without creating the expectations first. Like if I want to have dinner at 5 o'clock and I want everybody at the table, then my expectation is nobody's playing outside at 5 o'clock. Everybody already needs to be in the home, maybe at 4:45, so that they're ready to eat dinner at 5 o'clock. But I need to make that clear that that's what I'm wanting. That's why that rule is there.
I agree. And again, the expectation, and we have to be clear on what the expectations are. Children are not mind readers. If they were mind readers, they will, or if any of us were mind readers, it would make things a lot easier. But you said something very key, those expectations, being clear, defining them. 5 o'clock, we're going to have dinner. 4:45, come on in. 4:50, go ahead and wash your hands. Everyone gets settled. I would incorporate, if it's doing something like dinner, try to get the children incorporated in that ritual and that normality, and just to get them into it. So they may come in 4:40, 4:55, start putting cups on the table, start fixing drinks or setting things up. So it's showing that kid a skill, and you're setting forth the example of the expectation that you want to carry forward. So I think that'll be a very good thing to do, just getting the children involved, because again, your way is going to be different than the way that they were brought up, more than likely. So just taking that time out to show the kids.
What do you think about letting kids help make the rules? Sometimes we just want to make the rules because we're the adult and we're the ones in charge and we have this in our minds. But I think sometimes kids have some expectations too. Like if I go to my room and I need quiet time, I'm in there, as a kid because I need my quiet time. So I really feel like my expectation is you give me that 15 minutes and don't come knock on my door and don't bother, let me have that 15 minutes. So that's a rule. Like if I call a timeout for myself.
Yes, I agree that we definitely need to do what we can to assist in that area, because again, kids who if they're going through something, we don't know exactly what may trigger that kid at the moment or what's a hindrance, but for them to be able to voice that, hey, I do need this moment, or I know you expect this, give me time to work on this. Let me get it together. I definitely believe that will be good. And I know it may sound strange. We are not saying let a kid come in and disrespect you, let a kid come in and just set all the rules, but give a kid a little bit of power. Let them be able to choose certain things. If they may, it may be something as simple as a seat that they sit in during the dinner time. Them just having some choice, because again, our kids in foster care, they've not had much choice about certain things. So giving them a little bit of power can go a long way. Letting them sit where they choose to sit on the couch or whatever the case may be. It'll always help the children in the long run.
Hey, and I forgot to add this at the beginning. We are working from home. We're videoing this from our own home. So if y'all don't know, Key has 6 kids. So you may hear some background noise. They're upstairs playing. So I'm in my own home, so I don't have that. But, um, all right. So our next thing was always follow through. And there's actually 2 sides to that. We're talking about on praise and consequences.
So let's tackle both. We'll do both then. We'll do the praise side and then go to the consequences, so we won't lose our step on that. So one thing I always consistency. Consistency is very important. Whatever we say that we're gonna do, we need to make sure that we do it. Again, I know sometimes we may have things that come up. If something comes up that hinders us from performing what we said we were gonna do or keeping our word, let's not throw it to the back burner forever. Let's make sure that we say, hey, this is what came up. This happened. We're gonna make sure we get this right. We're gonna make sure we're still gonna be able to do this, because again, with the children who have been moved from time to time, some children have had more placements than others. They've been let down a lot. So we want to do the best that we can to keep our children encouraged, to give them a good foundation. And sometimes life happens and we're not going to be able to be exactly what we need to be or do exactly what we need to do all the time, but be consistent. Once we get back to where we need to be, that we keep doing those things, that we always put our good foot forward, I should say, and picking the ball back up and not making them feel like it's their fault. And even if they're vulnerable, allow them that time to talk about it. Hey, I felt when we didn't do this, it kind of triggered me to think back to what mom did or dad did. So we never know how that behavior may affect the kids if we're not consistent.
I think so. I mean, even as adults, if somebody tells me they're going to do something with me or they're supposed to, I look forward to hanging out with my friends on Friday night. But if they message me an hour before and say, I'm not coming, it's disappointing. And I can tell you, I usually don't react really well. It's like, why did you wait till the last minute? Or, man, dang, I really wanted to hang out with you today, that kind of stuff. And so if it'll disappoint us, just think what it'll do to a kid who's had trauma in their life, who's had tons of people back out on them at times. So, that's something to think about too.
Yeah, and you also got to look at it from the standpoint, if behaviors start after that, that may be that is possible that, hey, a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of letdowns, man, and then all of a sudden now behavior has started to change and you're wondering what's going on with this kid. That could be the factor. That could be the underlying factor that has caused these problems now, because now this kid's mind has gone back to where they used to be, or what has happened in the past. So as Nikki said, just staying consistent, because we want to be consistent. If we go to the doctor, we want our doctor to be consistent. If we go to Walmart, we want the workers to be consistent. We like consistency. So we need to offer the same thing for our children.
I think it's a trust thing too, because if you keep breaking your promise with me, I ain't gonna trust anything you say. So if you say, "Oh well, if you'll go clean your room really good, we'll go for ice cream," well, I ain't gonna clean my room because you're not gonna follow through with it. I don't trust you, and they're not gonna
Yeah.
trust you with the bigger things if you can't be trusted with that.
Yep, and and like you said, that's the big thing, because you want the children to be able to feel safe, to be able to communicate with you, because you're going to be the one providing the care, and they should know that they are in a safe place. So following through is always important, and even when you look at it from the reward side, whatever that reward may be, if you say, hey, you clean up, you'll get an extra 15 minutes before bed. if their reward has been given at that moment, don't go back and just change it. Keep what you said. No matter if they earn their part for that moment, keep it. Continue to roll with it. Don't always just follow through on the reward side, because if they are looking forward to that, I know sometimes kids may even be reading a book or something, and you say, hey, I don't I'm not gonna do this because you did. I'm not gonna do this now. We're gonna change everything, and I'm gonna go back on my word. Still keep your word. You're not giving in. You're not being a bad foster parent. You just keeping your word and still providing good care for the children, or
And
the child, I should say.
if you have to break a commitment for that moment, then at least have a conversation with that kid. Explain to that, show that kid that they're important enough that you can say, we're not going to do it right now, but I promise you we're going to do it at 7 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock because I ended up having a meeting pop up or something like that. Let them know that they're important enough that they get an explanation, because you would want an explanation as a parent. So,
Yeah, you're right about that. Now, what
uh,
about the consequence side? Now,
we're quick to follow
that's
through with that.
yeah, and I know a lot of you all, if not all, does everyone take the TBM training?
They get some form of it.
Okay, there's a training that we have to do called the TB. It's the TBM model, and it talks about the consequences, about them being logical, and how, what is it, logical,
Not
not
punitive
not punitive,
and natural.
natural. That's what it was. See, my mind just slipped me then. And sometimes when we think about the consequences, we sometimes get outrageous if a kid leaves a cup on the sink, and now we turn around and say, "Oh, you left a cup on the sink, no TV for 3 weeks." Well, that's not a that the crime, the punishment doesn't fit the crime in
Making it
that
punitive.
case. Yes, we need to make sure that when it comes to us giving consequences, that again, if they did wrong, if we have warned, we do what we say we're gonna do. Hey, if you're not cleaning your room, you know what? When you come home from school, first thing you're gonna do now on that Friday, instead of going to play your video games, instead of going to hang with friends, you're gonna be spending your Friday after school cleaning your room until your room is done. Always follow through, stay consistent. Don't put the punishment off, because again, children have to learn, children have to be taught. And so if we get in the habit of not following through with our punishments, just like even with the rewards, it will create a system. It'll create an environment where they say, oh, I can get away with this because I know how far to push the foster parent, I know how far I can go with them. But again, a lot of times when they come in to custody, children will push and see how far they can get and what they can get away with. So you're not gonna be the world's worst foster parent if you have to take a cell phone away. I know, especially with our teenagers. Teenagers love those cell phones, And if you say, hey, no screen time, it's worse than doing physical harm to a kid nowadays. And so just being consistent, and it helps them to build up, that helps them to build themselves up and gives them value. Because again, they may come from a place where they say, well, this is how we always done it. When I was with mom let me have my cell phone 23 hours out the day. Well, it's going to be different here. Or if you break a rule here, there is a consequence. Follow through, be firm and loving with the consequence, and be rational. Nothing, as I stated, don't go overboard. Don't don't have the kid out there roofing the house because they threw a frisbee on top of the house. Don't we have to make sure we do it appropriately.
Well, and a couple of things to add to that is, we talk about the cell phones and we talk about video games, and why do we do that? Because that is the number one thing that kid enjoys. So we don't want to take everything away from them that they enjoy. Obviously, they're going to become miserable, and you're going to create behaviors. So when he was talking about not making it a punitive, the video game is not the only consequence you have. The cell phone is not the only consequence you have. Just because it gets their attention, um, but like make it match. I mean, and if you're going to take the cell phone, it should be for reasons like they weren't doing their homework because they were on their cell phone, or they were doing something on the cell phone they weren't supposed to, or they were supposed to get off the cell phone at 8 o'clock at night, and they were on it a little bit later. Which, if you're tracking them like you're supposed to, you'll know that. But it's different things like that. But don't take away. your goal is not to take away everything they enjoy just because they messed up. And so I
Yeah,
think that's something to think about.
and then going back to what you said earlier, when it comes to being consistent as well, giving them a way to earn it back also. You don't have to take it forever, but set steps. Okay, if you want to have this back, this is what we have to do. This is what we're going to work on, and give that and acknowledge the fact of what that kid is doing and the behaviors. And of course, they may come and say, "Well, I didn't wash dishes last time. That's why I got in trouble." They wash one dish, and they may say, "See, look, I'm doing it." So that's a time to encourage still, where they still may not be there yet, but don't just shut them down. At least acknowledge the fact of what they've done. Okay, I see you doing it. Keep up, keep it up, keep it up. And so by the time they get it all done, they can earn it back. And so I know a lot of times we're quick to throw the consequence out, but let's also talk about getting back to how they can have those things back, how they can get back to what they want. Because if that child is so accustomed to that thing, and we just taking it away and never giving it back to them, or never even explaining why we took it, is going to create a problem.
And I heard a new term yesterday, actually from Chris Moynihan, who is our chief clinical officer, I believe is his title,
Yes.
uh, um, of reparative consequences. And so I don't know, Key, if he's talked about that with you or not, but instead, like if a kid does something like you go in the kitchen and they've just made a mess. And so a lot of times we would say, you need to go to your room for, 15 minutes or whatever. You need to go, you've messed this kitchen up. But instead of doing that, say, okay, let's clean this up. You made the mess, you're going to clean it up. Or if you hurt somebody's feelings, then the consequence might not be that you have to go sit in timeout for 10 minutes. It might be that you need to go apologize to that person. So it's a reparative consequence instead, because what we want them to do is learn from their consequences. And so, I mean, how hard is it for us as adults to say, I'm sorry, I messed up? And so how hard is it when we're at the office and we've left a mess and we have to drive all the way back over there to clean it up? It's that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So you learn from that. And so look, be creative. This is to our foster parents. Be creative with your consequences. Make sure there is learning to that. I mean, the whole goal of a consequence, it's not a punishment. It's a discipline. And discipline means to learn from. And you're learning from that consequence. Sometimes we just want to punish them. I know when I was a kid, those spankings done pretty good for the moment, but it was quick and it was done. So I was probably going to do that again a couple of
Yeah.
days later, and I was going to get another spanking, but it was going to be quick and done. I wasn't really learning from it. I learned to fear my parents at some point with that. So you got to understand things like that too. So I'm not judging spankings or no spankings. That has nothing to do with this training, but you're not spanking our foster kids, though. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
But the consequences, just make sure they're learning from them. What are they learning by not playing their video game? Oh, they took away something I enjoy to do, so I might as well not do something I enjoy because it's going to give them something to take away from me. I used to think that with my video games, with my Sega and my Atari. And I used to think, they only bought this for me so they would have something to ground me from. So, I mean, it honestly caused me to stop playing the game because, well, they won't have nothing to ground me from now. And then it became my bike because that was the next thing I enjoyed. So don't take
Yeah.
away everything they enjoy. Be creative. Teach them some lessons.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And at the times we're going through right now with kids being stuck in the house, you may not want to, you may, you may not want to take everything from them. So
They're going to be under your foot if.
yes, it around you and with you all day long. So
Of course, that's also key. Don't you agree? Like, okay, you want to play your video game for 30 minutes later? Then right now, go spend 30 minutes reading your book.
oh
You
yes,
know,
I definitely,
we have a really good foster parent that does something like that, Miss Folly.
yes, I'm always up for that. The reward system, and letting children earn their rewards, and being able to show that, hey, I want to do this, so I'm prepared to do this. I'm going to give this. If you give me that, I'm all for that. It keeps them. It gives them a lot of avenues and things to do, so they're still able to have their fun and also learn and do things at the same time. So I'm always thumbs up for that. Any way that we can help encourage all sides. Get some physical activity, get some mental by reading and studying or drawing, puzzles, things like that. Then to have their leisure time, to have the video games and with our teenagers. With it, some of them like to participate with foster parents and do some of the activities they do. I know we have some who foster parents who work on cars, and sometimes kids may help them, or if they're doing things like hunting or fishing and things like that. So it's a lot, that these kids can partake in and be cool. So I'm always for that.
And I know Alicia Foley will watch this. So, Alicia, if you could put some of your ideas down in the comments of things that you do, because I know your home is ran off of a reward system a lot of times. And we'll see some of the pictures where they did something good, so they got root beer floats, or they did this, so they got, a different reward. So if you could post some of your ideas, because me and Key actually brag on you about stuff like that a lot. So, and I know some of our other parents have some great ideas. So if y'all could post your ideas of how you do that, consequences kind of meeting the crime, so to speak. Um, and so we talked about, I done the little scene about homework, and uh, it's so easy to point out a negative on a kid. A lot of times it's easier if I told you to list out something negative on the kid and I told you to list out something positive, you're probably going to pop out with the negative first, because it's almost easier to come out with, because it stands out to you more. And so, like when the kid was doing their homework, they were working hard on their homework. They were doing what they were supposed to do, but they were having a challenge. So should they get scolded because they handed me a paper with the wrong answers on it, even though I know they were working hard on it? And so I think that we need to point out the positive reward. I mean, praise them when they're doing what you wanted them to do. And then if there's some mistakes to it, then work with them on it. Now, if they're sitting there not doing their homework, then that's a whole other ballgame. But you've watched them working on their homework.
Yep, you're right about that. And because it's always, even with anybody, we as adults even are, sometimes we look at the negative more than the positive. And so when a child is in an area of need, or they need help, or something is not going according to how we think it should be, still look for ways, as Nikki said, to encourage that child. Because again, if we are going to be the Debbie Downers and be always negative about it, and we're going to have attitudes toward the kids when they are doing things, guess what? That child is not going to be willing to talk. That child is not going to ask you for help. So guess what? If that child's a C student or a D student, and they can, you ask, hey, you had homework, you need help with it? Well, no, the last time I asked foster mom or foster dad, they scolded me. They didn't, so we have to think about the foundations we lay with the kids. We want to lay a firm foundation that we can build upon, and where they can have that trust, and where they can be vulnerable. They can say to you, well, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? And know that they're going to be helped instead of scolded, or treated in any kind of different fashion, I should say. And
Um,
so I'm always like, I always think about it from the standpoint of, when everybody doesn't know something. I always tell people I'm ignorant to a lot of things. You wouldn't want me to run electrical wiring in your house, because you'll be without lights forever, because that's not what I do. And again, with these kids, we sometimes have those expectations that, man, why is this kid in the seventh grade and don't know how to do this? Well, if that's the case, if that kid is maybe having some trouble learning, that's where we take the time out to see, what more do we need to do? Do we need to get an IEP? Do we need to put something in place? So it's all about being active like that, that'll let us know what the kids need. So if we may find out more by just being active and just open, and to see what the kids will say to us.
I want to read this little example on our notes that we have, and it says, if your child gets a good grade, praise their hard work instead of their intelligence. If the child believes they passed the test because of their intelligence, what does it mean when they fail the test? So,
Yeah, that
as a kid going to start, I've heard kids say, I am so stupid, I failed that test. We don't want our kids to ever look at themselves and think of themselves as stupid. So we praise the
exactly.
hard work that went behind it. Well, you studied for it, you did your best on it, and then you can follow through with, maybe we need some tutoring, maybe there is some stuff going on there. I mean, you are therapeutic foster parents, so we kind of got to look at it we look at it as a little bit different, because we know our kids have went through stuff. What can I do to
Mhm.
help this kid?
Man, you hit that example screams volumes about what happens, because if you think about it, I failed. I got to be stupid. I should have known these things. I'm not smart enough. But then, so that grade letter means a lot to the kids. And so if they're not getting the grade that they desire, is going to trigger something for the kids. And so going in and finding out, okay, what exactly do you need? What's going on? Tutor, as Nikki said, or if like I stated, the IEP or anything like that. If there's any kind of assistance that we can add, we need to do it for the kid. And so I think it's one of those things where when we look back at it and we even just look at our lives, we can see things that we have done, and or I should say, now I don't want to say from our youth. I'll look at it from a foster parent standpoint, even though I'm not a foster parent. If we think about the stuff that kids have been through with this trauma and what they're coming in with, you never know. It could be something about test taking abilities. It can be multiple things, and I don't want to get into all that right now, but definitely encourage. And even when they fail a test, you know, I hope and pray, and I know that none of our foster parents will say, "Well, sometimes you're just not smart enough." I hope and pray nobody says that. I don't think anybody will say that. But even when they fail, the attitude behind it, what are we going to do? How do you handle that? You know, sometimes it may not just be as simple as saying, "Hey, well, we'll suck it up. You'll get it next time." But okay, you fail. Which question did you have a problem with? Let's go through and work it. You know, you may not know how to do it, or excuse me, you may not know how to do it, but if we look at it from a standpoint of, you may reach out to the teacher, you may get an answer key, you may get something if you don't know it to be able to help the kid and be prepared for next time.
Yeah, so I mean, just always look for praise opportunities. I mean, that's a big thing. And our kids, they've probably not been praised too much. If anything, they've been shoved down. And so, I mean, from the small things, I mean, because if they're getting attention by getting praise because they're doing something good, guess what they're going to continue to do? If they're getting attention by doing something negative, but they're not getting attention for doing something positive, guess what they're going to continue to do? They're going to keep doing negative. And so make sure they're getting all kinds of attention when they're doing something positive, even if it's that they got up and brushed their teeth on their own this morning, or that they put a cup in the sink. Praise them. Oh, thank you so much. Putting that cup in the sink saved me from having to clear the table. Something like that.
Yeah.
So just look for opportunities to praise. I love when my supervisors or somebody praises me for doing something. It makes me feel good about the job that I'm doing. So I'm sure Keith feels great because I always praise him. No. All right. So we had that last scene that you did there, Keith.
Last scene was, let me
About
pull
the
it back up.
rewards. Not taking rewards.
Yeah, but yeah, don't take away the rewards. Now that's a big one. I kind of went toward it, but I didn't go deep into it. If it's today is the 22nd or something like that,
Yep.
if a child earns a reward today, and you say we're gonna use it next week, next Friday we're gonna go bowling. Next week comes and the child is just all over the place. The child is just has done. It's been a horrible week going forward. Friday gets here, that child is still expecting to go bowling. I know a lot of us will say, "No way, no how, I'm going to take you bowling." That kid has earned that reward. I think this would be a very teachable moment to say, "Look, we're still going to do this because you earned it. I'm not rewarding your bad behavior, but going forward, if you need to make sure that your behavior is going to be appropriate so that you can continue to earn rewards. We don't need to take that away from them because they have earned that. Nobody wants to lose what they've earned rightfully. It won't be fair to them, and then guess what? Now you're going to have even more problems on your hand because that child may become more defiant. That child may become irate. The child may act out in a certain way. So if they've earned that reward, continue to follow through with that. Continue to say, we're gonna do that, but you earning your next reward is going to be a little bit more difficult because of the behavior you're showing right now. So hopefully going through that will bring them back down and get them back on track.
I think that's a one point to that is if I do a long-term reward, it might not be smart to set the reward for next week. Yeah. The idea is doable rewards. You want to have rewards that you can do. Anything could come up in a week. But if I say you've earned the right, do some smaller stuff. Our kids don't have to go to the arcade as a reward. They don't have to go skating. They don't have to go bowling as every reward. So maybe the idea that they get 15 extra minutes on game time, or they get to stay up 15 minutes later, or um, or they sorry, my phone's buzzing, or we're gonna have ice cream for dessert tonight. Do some doable rewards instead of having to build up to these big ones. They get an instant gratification. I done something good tonight, I get something good.
Yeah.
We give consequences instantly. We don't say, oh, well, next week, because you were bad this week, we're gonna we're not gonna go to the park next weekend. Well, they don't
Yeah.
learn anything. They're gonna be bad till that point because they've already got the consequence.
Yeah, and you can do something as small as if you're gonna do a movie night. Let them choose the movie. Let them get a chance to pick their favorite movie tonight. Let them pick what snack you're gonna have during the movie. It's little things that we
Yeah.
can build upon that those kids, and in doing that, you give those children a little power, because again, as I stated from earlier, a lot of kids do not have that. They want that power. Not saying that they just want to be defiant, but they have not had much choice. And by us helping them to be able to do those things, it helps. I guarantee it'll make things better in the home.
And I think overall, with when you look at all these things that we discussed, and there's tons more that we could discuss, and we may do a video again later, but to take on some of these other topics. But in the reality sense, trauma therapeutic foster care, which is what you are, is therapeutic foster parents, is all about teaching. It's all about loving on kids who have went through really crappy stuff in their life, and it's all about building that kid up so that they have a different outlook on their future. And if we're not doing everything possible to make that happen, if we're just making it day to day and we're not even thinking through how our actions affect them, because it's a reality, our actions do affect them. If we're so busy that we can't give them time, how are we any different than the parents that didn't give them time? It's that kind of thing. We got to look at the big picture of stuff. If we just throw consequences at them and we never praise them, that's probably something that's been going on in their life for a long time. Because, a lot of times our kids go through abuse situations because the parents got stressed. And it's just like all the scenario that's going on right now and this COVID crap that's going on. The parents are stressed. We don't know what's going on behind those doors, but I can guarantee you when this comes out at the other end, those kids have went through some stuff because the parents have went stressed. They've lost their jobs. They've been stuck at home with the kids the whole time. They're trying to figure the education. Money's an issue. So kids end up getting the brunt of that because of the stress. So we need to make sure in our foster homes that it's different because we are therapeutic. These kids have already went through enough. We want to kind of give them something better. And so in all of our
I agree.
consequences, we need to think about that. If anything, they need more reward than consequence, if that makes sense. Now, there are behaviors that create a need for consequence, obviously. But Key has pointed it out a couple of times that we need to look at those behaviors and say, is it because they were beat when they were younger? Is it because they were sexually abused when they were younger that they do this? Does the kid not stay in their bed at night and they wander around the house because maybe they were sexually abused at night and being in their bed reminds them of that and it's not a safe place for them? It's those kind of scenarios that we have to look at the bigger picture because, we have kids that have went through some horrible stuff.
That's
And
true.
so, just from my own opinion as a foster parent, even when I was a foster parent, I couldn't look at that kid and say, oh, this kid's going to act like I did when I was younger because they're my same age at that time, whatever. Those expectations don't meet the same pattern, if that makes sense.
I agree, and if anybody now there were more on this list that we had, and this is something that we could share. Is I paid for it, so we can share it on our Facebook page, share with each other. So if you need any more ideas, we would definitely be glad to talk more about it, and definitely encourage you guys if you have anything to add to it in the comments when you're watching this, please do, because I know it would help other foster parents as well, create dialogue between all of us. So we would definitely like that.
All right. Well, we thank y'all so much for taking the time to listen to this training. And like I said, if you have the questions and all that kind of stuff, just keep posting down below. Me and Key will log in occasionally and see if we can answer your questions. If there's something that you want us to call you about, just post down there. Hey, Key, can you give me a call? Or hey, Nikki, can you give me a call if it's based off of this training? You also have RCs that come into your home that can help you with all of this. And they have team leaders that can help you. But plus you have the therapist. You know, you're part of a big team. You have the FSW, you got your therapists that are working with some of the kids. You got your RC, you got the team leader. There's the CASA worker. There's all kinds of people that can help you with some of these answers. So just remember to reach out to that. So, Key, you got any other comments?
No, that's it for me. Thank you,
All right.
guys.
Well, again, thank y'all very much, and we will talk to you guys later.